I was not a wrestler in high school, but I remember a time that I did have to wrestle, and I did not like it. I played high school football, and in the wintertime, one of the things that the coach would do is he'd gather all the players in the gym, and we'd sit in a big circle on the gym floor. And what he would do is he would call out two names at random, and those two people would have to come and wrestle. And there was no referee and really not any rules. I would sit there in that circle, sweat pouring off me, just hoping my name would never be called. And then one time it was. The coach said, "Stanley." I jumped up and I went to the center, and I did not know who I was going to wrestle against. And then he called, "Ellison." Gary Ellison was a year older, at least 10 pounds heavier, and a lot stronger, and so I knew I was in trouble. But what are you going to do? We jumped at each other and started grabbing and twisting and turning. You're wrestling, you're trying to get the advantage, get the upper hand. And let me tell you, wrestling, I was exhausted so fast. You're using every muscle in your body to try and defeat this opponent. So it went on for just a little bit, and then I started getting tired, and Gary started getting the upper hand. And then, and I remember this in my body too, he actually lifted me up off the ground. If you've ever been lifted, and I felt powerless, I was trying to grab him around my neck, or his neck, and then he slammed me through the ground. And one of the first pieces that hit was my face, hit the mat. I ached the rest of the day, and I will not forget it. That's my experience with wrestling. In our Old Testament reading today, wrestling is actually a part of that reading. The focus of the story is the Jewish leader Jacob. Now, if you know anything about Jacob, Jacob is a bit of a trickster. He's the one, if you remember the story, he cheats his twin brother Esau. Esau was supposed to, as the firstborn son, to get the inheritance, and Jacob tricked him out of that. So kind of the context of the story, these two brothers have been at odds, have been hostile to each other for a long time, and now as adults, Esau has an army, and Esau and the army are coming towards Jacob and his traveling group. What's going to happen? So Jacob kind of sets aside some of the people in his train of that he's walking along with, and he goes to be by himself. And he's there. There's a river called the Jabbok, and he's alone. And it's at night, and Jacob doesn't seem to be able to sleep. And then the story says there's an encounter where Jacob has to wrestle. Jacob and this mysterious other, they sort of fight and scuffle as equals. But it goes on for a while. They're wrestling, and Jacob is struck on the hip. So he's hurt. This other has some power. He's in pain. Jacob, in the middle of this wrestling, he gets a new name. This other, he says, "What's your name?" He says, "Jacob, you'll now have a new name." He blesses him with a new name. "Your name is Israel," which means the one who struggled with God, striven with God. God? And then daybreak happens, and the mysterious other is gone, and from that encounter, Jacob gets a new name, but he also limps away with the pain in his hip. Now, there are many theories about who this mysterious stranger, this wrestling rival, who was it? Lots of artwork show this other as an angel. You'll see Jacob wrestling with an angel with wings. Jacob wrestling an angel. Kind of going the other way, there's some people who think he was actually wrestling a demon, some sort of river demon at night. Some people go a little bit more psychological, that actually Jacob was wrestling with himself, with his thoughts. This is more of an interior event. Jacob is trying to figure out what kind of person he wants to be. Is he going to be this sly trickster that's at odds with his own brother? Then you even kind of get a little hint that he was wrestling with God. He was struggling with the divine, the great Yahweh of creation and covenant. It may be good that we don't exactly know. It's never explained who this wrestling rival was. Because we don't know, maybe we can use it to apply to many different things at many different levels. What we have is a description of a struggle, a wrestling match, a back and forth. It happens in the dark with a mysterious opponent. Jacob faces exhaustion as he tries to get the upper hand. He's not in control. Those of us, any of us like to be in control? Well, wrestling makes you vulnerable. And Jacob gets a hip wound. He has pain. He has real pain. He limps away from this battle, but he also endures. And in that way, he prevails. He has hung on even when it got tough. And a blessing is offered to him, a new name. In the midst of the wrestling match, Jacob is transformed by the encounter. Many things in life can feel like a struggle, a wrestling match. We live with constant change around us. Sometimes we wonder, what can we hang on to? Changes in our church, in our society, in our personal life. We grapple with things when the future seems unclear. So this morning, a question can be, what are we wrestling with? Maybe what are we even spiritually struggling with? Maybe you're wrestling with a decision. I remember years ago when I had the option of coming to work here at St. Paul's in Baltimore, and I was living in California at the time, and I had all my friends were there, everything I knew. I had 4-year-old twins. Was this the right time for them? Maybe it was a good time or not a good time to move. So many unknowns. And yet I felt drawn to come here. I can tell you there was a back and forth. You try to sort through, is this the right decision? Many sleepless nights trying to figure it out. What's the right thing to do? We can go into kind of a discernment struggle with things. I was talking with some of the teenagers in our congregation about what do people wrestle with, and they wanted me to have you in the congregation raise your hands in response. Because they were talking about, do people wrestle with anxiety or intense emotions? So I'm going to invite you to raise your hand. They wanted to know, would people be willing to do that? Are they going to take the risk to raise their hands? So raise your hand if you have ever struggled with anxiety or envy or not fitting in. Raise your hand if you've ever wrestled with that. Okay, teenagers. Pretty common. These emotions can be hard to deal with, difficult to know how to use them in a healthy way. When we face them, how do we grapple with them? See what they might be saying to us. We can find ourselves wrestling with money. Maybe money itself, or maybe even the role of money in our lives. It might feel at times, oh, money shouldn't matter that much, and yet it does. I mean, it does. Having financial resources enables practical living to happen. Come on, it does. Housing and travel and education, money is important to have, full stop. And yet, when does money start to have a grip on us? We can spend so much energy worrying about it. The amount we have becomes a sign of our personal value. Does money really bring us the security and happiness we crave? Money, it can be hard because we don't want to let it go, and yet we want to be generous. The theme of this year's stewardship campaign is give until it feels good. Give until it feels good. Is that possible? That being generous can bring a kind of joy? But it might take some wrestling to figure out how much we need and how much we want to give. We could this morning be wrestling with a bad habit. Maybe we were doing something we know is not good for us, but it's hard to say no. Oh, just one more time. We see this negative impact it has on ourselves or maybe other people. We struggle to find some spiritual help with whatever that behavior is. We struggle with what kind of person we want to be. And maybe even at times we find ourselves wrestling with God. God, what do you want me to do? Why did that illness happen, Lord? I'm praying, God, and I don't hear an answer. God, what is your will? I feel at times you're there, and at other times I'm kind of grasping at you. What would it mean that we would wrestle with God, this clearly superior opponent? So many of life's struggles aren't simple or easy. Sometimes we come away exhausted, or maybe even with a wound. We want to get things under control. We want to have them go our way, but sometimes we don't get the upper hand. We don't come out on top of every battle. There will be many sleepless nights as an unknown future awaits us. Disappointment, confusion, and even the sting of defeat are part of life's journey. But it can actually be from the wrestling that we get the personal growth we need. We struggle. Do we have the courage? Can we do this? Can we realize we can survive in some new ways? Find a direction we didn't know before? In the grappling, we end up knowing something more about ourselves. In a strange way, hope can come out of our struggles. It can be by wrestling that God can give us the blessing we need.